What if the most powerful response is saying nothing? Someone disrespects you. Your chest tightens and your mind races with the perfect comeback. But pause for 1 second, because the moment you react with anger, you've already lost. Anger feels strong, but it's predictable. It gives them exactly what they want: your attention, your emotion, your control. Silence, on the other hand, does something unsettling. It denies them validation, it exposes their weakness, and it places you above the chaos. History's greatest minds understood this truth deeply. Not every insult deserves a reply, and not every provocation deserves your energy. Because when you stay silent, you don't shrink, you rise. And the most dangerous thing to someone who disrespects you is not your anger, it's your calm. Part 1. The illusion of anger. Anger feels powerful. It feels like control. It feels like strength rising in your chest, demanding to be released. In that moment, anger convinces you that you are finally standing up for yourself, that you are no longer weak, that you are taking your power back. But here is the truth most people never stop to question. Anger is not power. Anger is the illusion of power. Because the moment anger takes over, your ability to choose disappears. Neuroscience shows that when anger rises, the rational part of the brain weakens. Judgment fades. Long-term thinking shuts down. You are no longer acting with intention, you are reacting. Pause for a moment. Take one slow breath. Say this with me. Reaction is not strength. Anger feels decisive, but it is automatic, predictable, easy to trigger. And anything that is easy to trigger is easy to control. When you explode, three things happen instantly. You give the other person your attention. You hand them emotional power. And you lose clarity. Clarity is the foundation of real strength. Think about the last time you lost your temper. Not the moment itself, but what followed. The replay in your mind, the words you wished you could take back, the subtle shift in how others saw you afterward. Research in behavioral psychology shows that people who react emotionally during conflict are perceived as less competent and less authoritative, even when they are right. Emotion does not strengthen your position. It weakens it. Reset with me. Anger feels strong, but strength that collapses under provocation is not strength at all. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply when he wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. This is not weakness. This is mastery." Because anger is often nothing more than opinion without discipline. A judgment formed too quickly. A reaction mistaken for power. Anger hands over your mind. Silence keeps it. Here is the final realization of this part. Anger does not punish the person who disrespects you. It punishes you. It drains your energy. It clouds your judgment. And it gives the other person exactly what they wanted: a reaction. Say this slowly with me. Anger is bait. And once you see anger as bait, you stop biting. Part 2. Why disrespect seeks a response. Disrespect is rarely about truth. It is almost never about honesty. And it is never truly about you. Disrespect is about provocation. Here is the uncomfortable truth most people never realize. When someone disrespects you, they are not trying to win an argument. They are testing one thing only: whether they can control your emotional state. Pause for a moment and take a slow breath. Say this with me: disrespect seeks a reaction. Because the moment someone can move your emotions, they move the interaction. And whoever controls the emotional frame controls the outcome. Psychologists call this emotional dominance. And research shows something powerful. In social conflicts, the person who remains calm is perceived as over 30% more powerful and trustworthy, regardless of status, rank, or authority. Now imagine this. You are in a meeting. A co-worker subtly disrespects you in front of others. If you react with anger, even if your words are sharp and justified, something strange happens. The room does not remember the disrespect. They remember your reaction. Let that sink in. Reaction shifts attention away from injustice and places it onto you. This is why disrespect is rarely accidental. It is strategic. People disrespect to feel superior. They disrespect to trigger insecurity. They disrespect to gain emotional leverage. They disrespect because they want to pull you into their frame where they feel powerful. And here's the part that changes everything. Disrespect collapses without response. Say that again slowly. Disrespect collapses without response. Marcus Aurelius understood this centuries ago when he wrote, The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This was not moral advice. This was psychological strategy. Because when you respond with anger, you confirm their success. You show them they reached you. You reward the behavior. Behavioral psychology is clear on this. Any behavior that receives emotional reinforcement is repeated, but behavior that receives no response begins to fade. In controlled studies on provocation, aggressive behavior dropped by more than 40% when insults were consistently ignored. Not confronted, not explained. Ignored. Silence removes the payoff. Now let's reset for a moment. Take a breath. Silence is not passive. Silence is not submission. Silence is refusal. It is the refusal to enter someone else's emotional game. It is the refusal to bleed energy for someone else's insecurity. Say it with me. Silence is refusal, not weakness. Picture this image. Someone throws a punch, but no one is standing there. That is what silence feels like to someone seeking a reaction. Confusing, unsettling, humiliating. They expected resistance. They expected noise. They expected fire. Instead, they received emptiness. And emptiness is terrifying to the insecure mind. This is why online outrage spreads so easily. Studies show emotionally charged responses increase visibility by up to 67%. Silence starves the algorithm and the ego behind it. The same principle applies in real life. When you do not react, something subtle but powerful happens. The instigator feels exposed. The audience recalibrates. And power quietly shifts back to you. Let's reset again. No reaction, no fuel, no power. This is why Stoics trained silence intentionally. They understood that most conflicts are not about truth. They are about ego collisions. And ego cannot survive without attention. Silence deprives ego of oxygen. But here is the deeper layer. Listen carefully. When you stay silent, you are not suppressing emotion. You are observing it without obeying it. You feel the anger, you feel the heat, but you do not move. That space between feeling and action, that pause, is where freedom lives. And once you learn to live in that pause, everything changes. Because in the next part, we will go deeper into the Stoic strategy of silence. You will learn how restraint was trained like a muscle, why self-control was considered the highest form of power, and how silence became a weapon sharper than words. So stay with me, because what comes next is not about holding back, it is about mastering yourself. Part 3, the Stoic strategy of silence. Silence is not weakness, silence is discipline, and discipline is the highest form of power. Most people believe strength is loud. They believe dominance must be visible. They believe power demands a response. The Stoics believe the opposite. They believe the strongest person in the room is the one who governs himself. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, yet his greatest victories were not over enemies, they were over his own impulses. He faced betrayal from friends, public criticism from citizens and enemies within his own court. Yet history remembers him not for his rage, but for his restraint. He wrote, "What disturbs you is not what happens to you, but your judgment about it." Pause here, take a slow breath. Because this single sentence reveals the entire Stoic strategy of silence. Silence is not about suppressing emotion, it is about mastering judgment. The Stoics understood something modern psychology later confirmed. Between stimulus and response, there is a gap, and in that gap lies choice. Most people live as prisoners of impulse. Something happens. Emotion rises, action explodes, but Stoics train themselves to live in the gap. Say this with me, I do not control what happens. I control how I respond. This is where silence begins, not as absence, but as awareness. Here is how the Stoics train silence like a muscle. First, they practiced delay. When insulted, provoked, or disrespected, they delayed response intentionally. Even 10 seconds. Even one breath. Modern neuroscience shows that a delay of just 10 seconds reduces emotional intensity by more than 50%. That pause allows the rational mind to re-enter the conversation. Reset with me. Delay is power. Second, they practiced observation. Instead of reacting, they watched. They watched the words. They watched the tone. They watched their own internal reaction. They asked themselves one question: is this within my control, If it wasn't, they let it pass. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Silence is the visible sign of that realization. Third, they practice voluntary restraint. They train themselves not to speak even when they could, even when they were right, even when they had the perfect response. Because Stoics knew something dangerous. Winning the moment often costs you the long game. Pause again. Say it with me. Not every truth needs my voice. Here's a real-world example. A leader is challenged publicly by a subordinate. If the leader reacts emotionally, authority weakens. If the leader remains silent, composed, and measured, authority solidifies. Studies in leadership psychology show that leaders who respond calmly to provocation are perceived as up to 40% more competent and trustworthy. Silence communicates confidence without explanation. Now here is the part that separates Stoic silence from avoidance. Stoic silence is intentional, it is chosen, it is active. It is not fear, it is not suppression, it is control. When you stay silent, you are not denying emotion. You are allowing it to pass without obedience. You feel the anger rise, you feel the heat in your chest, but you do not move. That moment when emotion begs for action and you refuse is the moment you gain authority over yourself. And self-authority is the root of all other authority. Reset with me again. Feel without reacting. Observe without obeying. This is why silence unsettles people. Because it reveals something they lack. Control. The person who provokes wants to pull you into chaos. Silence keeps you above it. And when you remain above it long enough, others begin to follow your emotional lead. This is emotional gravity. The calm mind becomes the center of the room. Now here is the Stoic exercise for you. For the next 7 days, practice intentional silence. When provoked, do 3 things. First, breathe once before responding. Second, ask, will my words improve this situation or feed my ego? Third, choose silence unless improvement is guaranteed. Track what happens. You will notice fewer conflicts escalate. You will notice people speak more carefully around you. You will notice your inner peace stabilize. This is not coincidence. This is consequence. Because silence, when disciplined, rewires power dynamics. And here is the final truth of this part. Silence is not the absence of strength. It is strength under control. In the next part, we will move from philosophy into action. You will learn exactly how to apply silence in real-life situations at work, in relationships, and in moments of confrontation. So stay with me, because understanding silence is powerful. But applying it, that is where dominance becomes visible. Part 4. Practical real-life application. Understanding silence is powerful, but applying silence in real life, that is where most people fail. Because theory is calm, reality is emotional. It is easy to stay silent in your imagination. It is much harder when your ego is attacked, your reputation feels threatened, or your emotions demand immediate release. So now we move from philosophy to practice. This is where silence becomes usable. Next time you are disrespected, there is a precise sequence you must follow. Not randomly, not emotionally, deliberately. The first step is pause. Not a dramatic pause, not a forced silence. Just one breath. That single breath interrupts the emotional reflex loop. Neuroscience shows that even one controlled breath can lower physiological stress responses by up to 30%. Pause with me now. Inhale. Exhale. Say this quietly to yourself, I feel anger, but I do not obey it. This is not suppression. This is awareness. The second step is asking the right question. Most people ask, how do I respond? Stoics ask something different. Is this worth my inner peace? That question changes everything, because many battles are not lost, they are chosen poorly. Ask again, slowly, is this worth my inner peace? Reset here. Most conflicts end the moment you refuse to pay for them emotionally. The third step is withdrawal, and this is where silence becomes visible. Withdrawal does not mean walking away physically, it means disengaging emotionally and verbally. You stop explaining, you stop defending, you stop justifying, because explanation is often submission disguised as logic. When someone disrespects you, they are not seeking clarity. They are seeking reaction. Silence denies them both. Here's a real scenario. A colleague undermines you publicly. You feel the urge to correct them immediately. Instead, you pause. You say nothing. You allow the moment to pass. What happens next is powerful. The aggressor feels exposed. The room senses imbalance. Attention shifts back to substance, not emotion. Studies in group dynamics show that when one person refuses to react, the group unconsciously mirrors that calm within seconds. Silence stabilizes the room. Reset with me. Calm is contagious. The fourth step is observation. This is where silence becomes intelligence. While you are silent, you watch. You observe tone. You observe intent. You observe patterns. You learn more in silence than you ever do in argument. Because when people speak freely, they reveal themselves. Silence turns the other person into the speaker, and the speaker always exposes their position. This is why Stoics valued listening more than speaking. Now let's apply this to relationships. In emotional conflicts, words escalate rapidly. One sentence becomes five. Five become wounds. Silence breaks the chain. When tension rises, do not match intensity. Lower it. Silence signals safety, and safety invites honesty. Research in relationship psychology shows that conflicts de-escalate faster when one person reduces verbal output deliberately, not to punish, but to stabilize. Reset again. Lower the volume internally first. Now here is the hardest application, when silence is misunderstood as weakness. This is where most people break. They fear that silence means losing respect. But the opposite is true. Respect is not earned through reaction. It is earned through consistency. When people see that you do not react impulsively, they adjust how they approach you. They speak more carefully. They provoke less. They test boundaries less often. This is long-term dominance. Here is your practical exercise. For the next 7 days, practice the silence sequence. Pause. Ask the question. Withdraw. Observe. Write down what changes. You will notice something subtle but powerful. Conflicts shorten. Your energy remains intact. Your self-respect strengthens quietly. This is not coincidence. This is conditioning. You are training others how to treat you without saying a word. Reset with me one final time in this part. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is selection. You are selecting which battles deserve your energy and which ones starve without it. And once you master this, something shifts internally. You no longer fear disrespect because you understand it has no power without your permission. In the final part, we will uncover why silence always wins in the long term, why anger fades, why words echo, and why silence leaves no regret. Stay with me, because the conclusion changes how you carry yourself forever. Part 5. Why silence always wins, anger fades. Words echo. Regret remains. Silence is different. Silence leaves nothing to apologize for, nothing to explain, nothing to take back. This is why in the long run, silence always wins. Anger feels satisfying in the moment. It gives the illusion of release. But what it truly does is borrow peace from the future. You may feel powerful for seconds, but you pay for it for days, sometimes years. Think back to the last time you lost your temper. Not the relief, but the aftermath. The replay in your mind. The words you wish you hadn't said. The respect that quietly slipped away. Pause here. Breathe. Say it with me. Short-term relief creates long-term regret. Silence does the opposite. Silence delays gratification and rewards you with clarity, stability, and respect. This is why silence protects your reputation. People rarely remember who spoke the loudest. They remember who stayed composed when it mattered. In leadership studies, composure under pressure is ranked as one of the top predictors of long-term respect, outranking charisma, intelligence, and even confidence. Silence communicates something words never can. It says, I am not ruled by impulse. I do not need to prove myself. I choose my battles. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." This was not about morality. It was about identity, because the moment you mirror anger, you become what you despise. Silence preserves who you are. Now let's talk about energy. Anger is expensive. It drains focus. It hijacks sleep. It follows you home. Studies show that unresolved anger increases stress hormones for hours after the event, lowering cognitive performance and decision-making ability. Silence cuts that cost immediately. When you do not react, the event ends where it happened. It does not travel with you. Reset with me. What you do not react to, you do not carry. This is why silence strengthens self-respect. Every time you resist impulsive reaction, you prove something to yourself. You prove that you are in control. And self-respect is built quietly through moments no one applauds. This is why silence compounds over time. At first, people test you. Then they adjust. Eventually, they respect the boundary you never announced. Because silence trains others how to treat you. Without arguments, without threats, without explanations. Now here is the final realization, and listen closely. Silence does not mean you never speak. It means when you speak, it matters. Words become rare, measured, heavy, and when you finally choose to respond, people listen because they know you do not waste your voice. This is the ultimate Stoic victory. Not dominance through force, but authority through restraint. Reset one last time with me. Silence is not absence. Silence is intention. It is the decision to remain sovereign over your inner world no matter what happens outside it. And once you master this, disrespect loses its power permanently, because it cannot touch someone who does not need to react to feel whole. Now let me leave you with this. The next time someone disrespects you, you will feel the familiar rise of anger. That moment is your choice point. You can react and give away control, or you can remain silent and keep it. Choose silence, because silence does not shout. It does not argue. It does not beg for validation. Silence simply stands unmoved, and that is why silence always wins. If this wisdom resonated with you, like this video to support Stoic philosophy, subscribe to Making Life Better for more timeless power lessons. Share this with someone who needs control, not chaos, and now do one simple thing. Go to the comments and write one word. Silence. Because those who understand silence don't need to explain it. Remember, the loudest power is often silent.